Hello everyone, welcome to this series on the history of English literature. And in this video, we are going to discuss the features of the Age of Transition. Introduction. The period known as the Age of Transition was marked by disturbance and confusion, typical of times when significant changes are underway. Tracing the various literary tendencies of this era is challenging, but with careful examination, we can identify some clear patterns. The double tendency. Two prominent movements can be observed in the literature of the time. Allegiance to the old order of classicism. This movement was characterized by a continued commitment to classical ideals and forms. The most notable and nearly solitary figure representing this tendency was Samuel Johnson. His work embodied the principles of classicism and his influence was substantial, effectively serving as a bastion for the traditional literary order. The search for the new order of Romanticism. Concurrently, there was a burgeoning quest for new literary expressions that would eventually crystallize into the Romantic movement. Many writers were involved in this search to varying degrees. The movement can trace its early roots back to 1730 with the publication of James Thomson's The Seasons. Although there was a temporary lapse in momentum, the Romantic movement gained strength in the later years of the century, culminating in a significant shift in literary paradigms. The New Romanticism. The Romantic movement introduced several general features that distinguished it from the preceding classical approach. A return to nature. Romanticism emphasized a genuine connection with nature, the authentic experience of the natural world, as opposed to the contrived representations found in artificial pastoral themes. This return to nature sought to capture the true essence of the environment. Renewed interest in humanity's place in nature. There was a heightened focus on exploring humanity's relationship with the natural world. This introspection led to increased activity in religious and political thought as writers and thinkers grappled with fundamental questions about existence and society. Sympathy for the poor and oppressed. An enlightened compassion emerged from those who were marginalized. This shift is evident in the works of poets like William Cowper, Robert Burns, and George Crabbe. Even poets with classical inclinations such as Thomas Gray began to reflect this growing concern for social issues, indicating a significant change in the collective mindset. Revolt against conventional literary techniques. Romantic writers challenged established literary conventions, such as the strict use of the heroic couplet. They sought strength, simplicity, and sincerity in expressing new ideals, favoring more flexible and expressive forms. Fresh treatment of romantic themes. There was a renewed interest in exploring supernatural stories, legends, and vibrant historical periods, particularly in the Middle Ages. This is exemplified in poems like The Lay of the Last Minstrel, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and La Belle Dame Sans Merci. Writers delved into themes that were rich in imagination and emotion, setting the stage for the dominance of these features in the subsequent literary era. The New Learning. The middle and later stages of the 18th century experienced a minor renaissance that impacted much of Europe. An increase in wealth and comfort coincided with an overall elevation in intellectual standards. France was notably influential during this period, marked by its efforts of the encyclopedists and vibrant social scenes of the salons. Prominent English writers including Edward Gibbon, David Hume, and Laurence Sterne visited Paris which had become a center of European culture. In England, this new learning manifested in several ways. Revival of the Romantic movement. There was a resurgence in researching archaic literary forms such as the ballad and producing new editions of older authors like William Shakespeare and Geoffrey Chaucer. Publication of significant works. The release of Bishop Thomas Percy's Relics of Ancient English Poetry in 1765 was a landmark event, showcasing some of the oldest and most beautiful examples of ballad literature and significantly contributing to the Romantic movement. Scholarly editions of classics. Figures like Alexander Pope and Samuel Johnson produced editions of Shakespeare's works, demonstrating varying approaches to textual interpretation and scholarship. Other scholars such as Lewis Theobald and William Warburton also contributed valuable research and critical additions. The new philosophy. A spirit of keen skepticism and a thirst for inquiry characterized the new philosophical thinking of the time, reaching its peak in the works of Voltaire. Scotland embraced this intellectual movement early on, and David Hume emerging as a leading philosopher. While this skeptical approach might seem at odds with the Romantic ideal, which often delights in illusion, it ultimately served to benefit Romanticism. By challenging and dismantling outdated beliefs and conventions, the new philosophy cleared the way for fresh and imaginative creations. The growth of historical research. Historical writing became increasingly prominent in literature, a development that required extensive research and thoughtful reflection. The 18th century saw history rise swiftly to a place of great prominence. Fostered in France and first influencing Scotland, the historical school found a distinguished leader in Edward Gibbon, who was as comfortable writing in French as he was in English. The new realism. Initially, the spirit of inquiry led to a suppression of romance in literature, focusing instead on realism. This shift brought all levels of society into literary exploration. The novel experienced remarkable development, often centering on domestic life and everyday incidents. Authors like Henry Fielding depicted human life with fidelity, frequently delving into detailed and sometimes sordid aspects. However, in a broader sense, these novelists were romanticists because their sympathetic and fresh treatment of subjects aligned with the new ideals. The decline of political writing. As party spirit waned, the fervor for political pamphleteering diminished. Poets and satirists were no longer courted by prime ministers. Robert Walpole, one of the most influential ministers of the time, openly disdained literary figures, feeling no need for their support. Consequently, writers began to rely more on public readership rather than patronage, which was not entirely detrimental. This shift led to the rise of professional men of letters such as Samuel Johnson and Oliver Goldsmith, who wrote to meet the demands of the public. Later in the century, as political tensions escalated once more, pamphleteering regained importance, reaching a peak with the works of Junius and Edmund Burke. So this was the discussion on the features of the age of transition. We will meet in the next video and discuss some other aspects of this age. Until then, goodbye and thank you.